Bill Wenner here in Perham, Minnesota. And Bill, I want to really thank you for agreeing to be interviewed.
Okay.
And we'll just talk maybe a little bit. I always like to get a little bit of a background to start out with. I had asked you, sound check wise, where you were born, and you said Wadena, Minnesota.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your early years. Were you in the city? Were you on a farm?
Well, my dad, he worked for the state of Minnesota, and it was in the buggy days, and he owned a pair of mules then. And when I come along, he had to sell his mules in order to pay the doctor bill, and ended up with a pair of horses. And he wasn't too happy about that. And I was just a little fella. I only weighed a little over 4 pounds when I was born. So in those days, that was really something unusual. And my grandma said I fit in a cigar box. So I must have been pretty small. So.
Yeah, in those days to even survive at an early...
Yeah.
Wow.
I was in the hospital an extra 3 days. That's where the extra money come in.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't have those, I don't know what they call them, that they put the babies in now.
Incubators.
Incubators, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they just try to keep me warm and keep me going. So
well, must have worked.
It might worked. Still here.
That's quite a story.
Yeah.
That's really... I don't think I've ever met anyone whose dad had to sell his pair of mules to pay the doctor bill for him to be born.
Yeah, that was me, all right.
Wow, that's fascinating. Okay. And now you said he worked for the state of Minnesota. What was it that he did?
He graded the roads and kept the mud holes filled in, and he worked out of Bluffton. And he only had about, maybe at the most, 10 miles of road that he had to keep up. But they even demanded that he plow some of it in the winter. And he had a homemade plow that he used. It was quite a contraption.
That the mules would pull?
No, well, the horses now.
The horses
yeah.
At that point. But...
Yeah. That they would pull and keep the road open so the farmers could get in with their milk. So
I saw at an old auction somewhere one time, or some old farm homestead, some big contraption piece of equipment with a blade on it, and they told me that it was a horse-drawn road grader or whatever. Yeah. So I suppose that's something along the line of what he used.
Yeah. So he really run through all the different trucks and stuff. The first truck he owned had come from World War I, one of those old Jennies. And the second one, I think it was one of those old WDs. Rios they were, and there was a cab over the engine, and it had a lot of compression, and the spark plugs would fly right out of the head. They had to put a steel plate in there so they wouldn't get hit in the rear end when they got that old baby going. Yeah, he had some real trucks there.
Now, you said he only had 10 miles to maintain. Was this a full-time job?
Yeah, that was a full-time job in those days.
It took that much doing in those days with the tools that they had.
That they had, yeah.
Wow.
So, but it wasn't long, and after World War I, they really started making some roads, and they got them upgraded, and of course, then they moved him to Perham because it was a bigger outfit, and they were taking over more of the roadway. And then he stayed in Perham until, I guess it was a Farmer Labor Rights got into power, and then he got moved to Detroit Lakes for a foremanship for a while. I think it was 2 or 3 years he was foreman out of Detroit Lakes. And then he came back to Perham again.
Foreman of road crew.
Road crew, yeah.
Now, I'm also curious, and I know this isn't on topic as far as the vets, but I always just like to get a little background. Besides, it's really interesting. You mentioned that he had to sell the mules to pay the bill, and he got horses. Were horses cheaper than mules?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Would you have, I guess I wouldn't have realized that.
Mules are a bigger animal. In those days, they were.
Oh, and more powerful.
More powerful. And,
wow.
yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so then you were born in Wadena. Your dad did that road work. Then you moved to Perham next?
Yeah, well, we lived in Bluffton, and from Bluffton we moved to Perham.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you attend school in Perham?
I went through grade school, that was sister school, and through high school, and that's when the Army and the Navy tried to come over, and they had, when I got old enough, they still had the draft. Truman was in power at that time, and they still had the draft. So my dad, he watched it. He didn't want us in the Army. I got a brother. And when the numbers got close to ours, he called us. I was working in the cities at that time, and he called us and he says, you better get home and enlist in the Navy because they're going to be after you within a couple weeks. So we came home, and that's when I enlisted in the Navy. Because he said, I can't see you laying out there in the field not having a hot meal.
Yeah? Sounds like a better deal to be in the Navy than, Okay.
So we came home, and this was 1950 then, in October. And we hunted the first part of the month, my brother and I. We had good hunting. And then we went in, the 11th of October, we went into the Navy.
You both went in at the
same time. And we went up to Great Lakes. They trained us up there. And those were really some old barracks. Oh, man. We had a big snowstorm a little after Christmas, and the snow came right through the walls. We had snow on the floor and all over. Oh, wow. But it didn't last long. It was, it isn't as cold as here. It wasn't in Chicago there.
Damp, but not
damp.
As cold.
That's right. It wasn't as cold. We lost one kid that time. He got pneumonia, and we never did see if they mustered him out or what happened to him. But usually they held him back a couple classes, and then took him on.
And then put him on.
Yeah.
Had your father ever been in the service himself?
No, never. No. He had quite a few relatives that were in there, and they all were giving him advice, So.
And your brother, it isn't like he's a twin brother or was.
No, he's 12 months younger.
Okay.
Well, it's 14. It's actually 14 months younger than I am. So, and he lives in Moorhead.
So the Great Lakes barracks were fairly comparable to the Ritz-Carlton then, I hear.
Oh yes, yeah, very much so. Now, when we had to clean up, we had a couple of guys that were there from World War II, and they were some real characters. They didn't want to come in to begin with, and then they got them in there, and this one guy especially, this officer come up and said, I want this floor clean. So he just got out the fire hose, and we just hosed everything down, and we had water running down the stairs, and boy, all of a sudden, here come the officer. What in the world do you think you're doing up here? Well, we're just washing up a little bit,
Probably didn't ask him to clean the floor.
No, that ended our floor cleaning.
Oh. Had bunk beds then in the barracks?
Yeah, bunk beds, yeah.
Just too high?
Yeah, that's all they were, yeah.
Okay, all right. What about the food?
Well, it was pretty decent. I thought it was decent food. They served good hot meals, and that was the main thing. Well, there ain't that much there at Great Lakes. They shoved you through as fast as they could, because they needed the manpower to get guys on these ships they were decommissioning, So they shoved us right on through and loaded us on a train and got us going down to Florida. Boy, I was happy as a lark, after having snow on the floor and everything. And they pushed us down to Jacksonville, Florida, which was, geez, it was beautiful. I couldn't believe it, I had never seen a place in the wintertime as nice as this. And this was the end of January, going into February. So it was really getting nice down in Florida. So we got things arranged down there, and we worked in the big warehouses. Everything They would take inventory there year round. Just you're busy counting just steady all the time. And the first whole year we were there, that's the main thing we did, was just take inventory. And the second year, they had some problems in the clothing and small stores division. And for some reason, I got picked to work in one of the small stores. And I didn't take long, and I was the head of that small store to take care of it. Well, I really loved it because I'd go into work at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I could shut it up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was a nice, clean job. Of course, it was always counting. You were always counting to keep the inventory, and they were checking on you. They had 3 guys checking on you all the time. Boy, if you were short a penny, they were after you. But I wasn't used to all this inventory stuff and watching you like a hawk, you know, because I was considered all the time, you're no crook unless they catch you stealing. But boy, you're a crook all the time. So, so there. But like I say, I really enjoyed it. And the last whole year, I worked in that small stores, and then we finally got orders to ship out on a ship. And I went on the USS Millette, and my brother, they split us up then. They put him on the USS Duel. They were both transport ships. They were both in Norfolk at the same time. And I still think there was a chief there that my brother and I, we always used to get together, you know, and gang up on some of these guys and really get them good. And I think we must have got him good, and he got me good, and we got back, because then he split us up. Because I don't see how in the world we got split up otherwise, you know.
Well, it could have been because of the Sullivan brothers
incident,
though, or something like that.
But we had papers signed that we should be together.
Oh, I see.
My parents signed special papers and everything that we should be together.
Oh, interesting.
But
Okay.
I was lucky. I stepped on that ship, and boy, this chief, he was real happy to see me. He said, "Can you type?" I said, "Yeah, I can type." Boy, he says, "You're my man." He put me right in the office. And geez, at that time, I had just made 3rd class, just about 2 months before. And put me right in the office and set me at the machine and told me to start typing out orders, because we had got orders. We were going to go to the Mediterranean for over 4 months. And we were going to pick up 1,500 Marines, and we were going to be on the water. So we had to do most of the ordering for the whole ship, from toilet paper on up. And they had just been on a cruise up to, up north someplace, because they still had their heavy jackets and stuff. And they were only gone a month, so I just multiplied everything times 4. So,
Oh no, I think I'm hearing some
come
trouble.
to the toilet paper, you know, I didn't know they had dysentery while they were gone. So I ordered, you know, 4 times, and Jesus Christ, they start coming with this toilet paper, and they had truckloads of it backed up down there. And I said to the lieutenant of the supply department, I said, I think we got a couple rolls too many. He says, "We'll load her up. We got the room." He says, "We're taking it along." He says, "You never know what can happen." So we took 2 whole big compartments up with that toilet paper. What's so funny is we get over there in the Mediterranean, and we got this one officer. He was always trading stuff, you know. And he got to talking and with these people over there, and sure enough, somebody was short of toilet paper, but they had a lot of beer. So man, we traded toilet paper for beer.
And you were the man of the hour.
Yeah, I was man of the hour. Boy, did you make the right mistake, you know. I'll tell you. So you really have, you know, different experiences with some of this stuff. But it was, I liked being at sea, because then I didn't have to do nothing really. But boy, the minute you hit shore, then you had to get your water hooked up and all this stuff. You know, otherwise, we had made our own water. We distilled it. It was quite a deal, distilling it. But the minute they hit shore, well, then they'd quick wash out these distillers and get them set for when we went back to sea again.
Okay.
But I was going to tell you about when we were in Florida, my brother and I, we went back to Minnesota on the bus. And my brother, he kind of got sick from that diesel film. Oh, he didn't feel good at all. So when we got there, we started looking for an automobile to drive back down to Florida. And we run into this old farmer. Jesus, this car was in good shape, I figured, you know. It looked good and everything. And it wasn't smoking. And I thought, oh, dang it, we'll take a crack at it. So we bought it for $150. And we got on the road, and we got from here to Minneapolis, and we didn't have no oil. So I crawled underneath and took a look, and sure enough, the front main was gone in it. So we just went down to Sears and bought 5 gallons of oil, and then we started out. And wherever we'd go and stop and fill up the gas tank, we used 15, let's see, 5, 10, yeah, 15 gallons of oil going down to Florida.
15 gallons.
Gallons, yeah.
Reminds me of an old 57 Chevy I had. We'd pull into a filling station, we'd say, fill up the oil and check the gas.
Yeah.
Wow.
But when we finally got down there, we run into a real good mechanic. They had mechanics all over there in Florida, you know. They call them shade tree mechanics.
Right.
And they got a branch on the tree and they yanked that motor out, you know. Anyhow, this guy was good. And we got him to take care of that. And he liked to work on these old motors. And we got him to take care of that. And of course, he yanked the motor out and he had her re-sleeved and he painted the block blue and the heads on it red. And there was great big spark plugs in the thing. Man, they were about that big. And it really, and then we had air cleaner was chromed. It was, geez, you open up that hood and it was just shine, that motor.
Boy, he was really into it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
What kind of car was it then?
That was a 33 Ford.
That was an old car at the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. 20 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So I bet you wish you had it now.
Oh, that thing would really be worth some bucks, yeah.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But it done its job for us. We never had any problems with it as long as you kept oil in it. That was the main thing. But after we got it fixed up, run like a gem, just like oh man, you just turned a key and that baby was going. And it went. You do 65 miles an hour with that car, you were moving right along. But no brakes.
The old mechanicals clamped down. Yeah.
You'd be just a punk.
Stomp and pray.
Stop and pray. Oh, man.
That must have been a 6-cylinder then?
Oh, no, 8.
That
was the first 8 that Ford come out with.
33?
Yep.
Early?
Yep.
Wow. I knew you were talking, but that was a 37 you were talking about.
No, that was the 33.
Oh, that was the same car?
I don't know if you want to try and get a picture of it, hold it up there.
Sure. I didn't realize Ford, because I know, my word, 29 was the first year that Chevy came out with even a 6-cylinder. And then Ford came out with an 8 in 33.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
But they never come out with brakes until about, I don't know, in the 40s or something, you know.
Right.
And boy, as much power as this car had, you should have had brakes on it. But we got along real good with it. You just had to be a little careful is all, I'll tell you.
You think way ahead when you've got mechanical brakes like that. You really do. Yeah. So your brother and you bought the car together?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. When we went over to the Mediterranean on my ship, the Millet, we left on the 8th of September. And it was getting cold. And you get over there in the Mediterranean, and geez, that's beautiful weather over there then too. Yes. And we stayed there until February in the Med. And we were just in a complement of just 4 ships, and once in a while we'd get together with the carrier group. But there was just 4 of us that made the port. And we made 13 ports of call while we were in the Med. All the way from Algiers to Palestine to back out to the African coast again.
What an opportunity.
And what a place when you come into the Mediterranean. There's just a narrow opening. It isn't that wide. You can see both shores. And the British, they control it. They got the island of Madagascar there, and that sits just about in the center. And every ship that comes through, they either count it or take pictures of it, or at night, we come through at nighttime, and boy, there was lights just a-flashing from the shore of our ship, steady. They want to know who you were, where you come from.
The communication lights.
Communication lights, yeah. Yeah. Like I say, we carried 1,500 Marines, and then our complement of our ship was close to 500, so there was 2,000 people on that ship. And the chow line would start at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then whenever it would end around 9 o'clock at night, the meals would be steady, from breakfast to lunch to supper.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose for that many men, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
What type ship was it again?
Transport. It was attack troop transport, they called it. I don't know, it wasn't much of an attack. They just had one big 5-inch gun on the rear, and we had some 20 and 50 calibers otherwise. But it was a pretty good sized ship. I don't know if you want to take a look at it or not, but
sure, if you got a
it's 5 stories high.
Wow.
So it gives you an idea of the size of it. And it was made in the Kaiser shipyards out there on the west coast.
Did you ever learn who or what it was named for? Was this an individual Millet or?
That was some officer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you mentioned that it was an attack transport. Did you ever have call that you needed to use the guns for anything real, or was it mainly, did they use them occasionally, I'm sure, just for drills and things?
For training.
For training?
After I got back from this trip on the Millet, I was back about a month, and I had put in to get over on my brother's ship, the Duel. And then I got my orders to be transferred over there. So my last, half year or so I spent on his ship. So in his ship, they really use it. I know Morin got on that ship, and they took us down to the Caribbean and put us on atomic attack. And it was hotter than a pistol down there. It had to be 120 or so. And they made you button your shirt and tie the bottoms of your pants tight with rope, so that atomic stuff couldn't get at you. And then they had a cover for your face, and it was quite a deal.
Now, was this precautionary drill, or there was actually radiation present because of something?
No, it was just precautionary drill.
Training you for an event when it would be needed.
Yeah. So it was quite an experience for me. I didn't think much of this atomic stuff, and here they are, boy, clothing you from top to bottom.
Presumably that was because of the Cuban Missile Crisis thing, or what?
No, it was just the maneuvers that they were having down there. Mm-hmm. And I had often heard about this.
No, Cuban missiles would have been later than that.
Yeah,
so, yeah. Okay.
At Kennedy. Mm-hmm. The Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And I always heard that it was really quite a place. And we pulled into it, and there wasn't really that much there, but it had a beautiful harbor. And they had an enlistment club there, and they had a ship store there, and they sold guns in there. We bought a deer rifle, my brother and I, from there. And let's see, what else? Oh, that night, there was about 6 ships in the harbor. And of course, one guy made the mistake of saying his ship was better than anybody else's. And they got into a big squabble, and they just wrecked that enlistment club. Just tore everything to pieces. So then they got to blaming people, and they blamed our ship. So the captain said, "Take your dumb Guantanamo Bay, and we'll leave. So we pulled anchor and we went to Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Man, what a place. Oh, Lord. That was just like Christmas there. It was, I've never seen people that dark in my life. They were darker than that shirt you're wearing.
Yes. Yeah.
Honest to God, they're just totally black. Why? And, they just love you. You get a taxi. There were a bunch of us, we hired a taxi. The first thing they say is, rum and Coca-Cola. Come on, boys, rum and Coca-Cola. Boy, they were just serving rum and Coca-Cola. Man. And I'd never drank rum and Coca-Cola in my life. So we went down there and had our rum and Coca-Cola.
How long were you able to stay at Port-au-Prince then?
We were there about 4 days. We were there. The whole part of the middle of the week. Yeah.
Beautiful beaches and everything. And,
man. Yeah, I went to see the witch doctor dance around the chicken, and oh God, that was hilarious.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What do you remember from it?
They had this little old gal, and she was dancing around this chicken, and she'd go at it, and this chicken, it was one of those small ones with all the color on it, and finally she got herself worked into a frenzy, and she got a knife and drawed blood. Oh my God! Then the whole crowd went crazy, you know. They all, they just bunch of nuts. I'd never seen people like that before.
She would slay the chicken. And then that was the climax.
That was the climax to it.
Ceremony. Yeah. Where to from Port-au-Prince then?
Well, we went on more maneuvers. We come out of there, and then we went on more maneuvers, and they had a plane fly by towing a target, and they shot everything from our ship. It's the first time I ever seen them shoot that 5-incher off the back, and the whole ship just went sideways when they shot it.
Really?
Yeah, it really something, man. So it was. I got quite a kick out of it. I didn't think it'd do that. I was in one of the gun turrets up front, and when that baby went off, it really, vroom, you know. Yeah.
Quite the kickback.
Oh,
jeepers. More than that deer rifle you got in Cuba.
Yeah, it sure did have.
Now, did they actually try and, was it a plane that was dragging a target plane?
That's right. Mm-hmm. And well, we finally knocked it down, but one of the other ships had hit the cable that was pulling, and it cut the cable, and that's how they shot the dumb thing down.
You're kidding?
No, it was.
Try and do.
Boy, everybody. They were just yelling and screaming when that thing went down, you know. Oh, Lord, they thought that was it. That was the greatest. Yeah, that was something.
That's amazing. What a...
When you wanted to know when we did after we left there, well, we went on maneuvers, and then we went back up the seacoast. And this captain, I don't know, on this duel, he was quite a guy. He knew part of the inland waterway on the coast, and we went up part of the inland waterway with our ship, and it was, geez, it was beautiful, man.
And there was enough draw and stuff.
There was. He seemed to know. We didn't go on certain parts of it, just where he figured was safe, and
wow.
And we pulled into Boston, Massachusetts, and that's quite a town, you know. Of course, that's where the Revolution was fought, and they got all kinds of historic things there, and the old warship, the Constitution, and.
Oh, they still have that there?
Yeah. Wow. And they really got it painted up nice. Yeah.
I've been there, but I didn't get to spend any time to speak of. Yeah.
Bunker Hill. They had a lot of interesting things to see there. When we went, some of it you could just get on this one city bus. It's a sightseeing bus, and it just cost you 50 cents, I believe, and it takes you all over the city. And it was really a deal.
I was just curious if when you went to Great Lakes Naval Base, was that your first time away from home of any magnitude, so to speak?
No, when we graduated out of high school, we had bought a 29 Model A Ford. And we overhauled that, and then we drove that out to the West Coast and back.
Your brother and you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we got out there, and we had an uncle that lived in Oregon. And we got right into the berry fields right away, into the strawberry fields and black caps, and geez, they paid good money. We made $10 a day. In those times, that was big money, I'm telling you.
Boy, I guess.
And
that was a fortune.
yeah, in Birdseye, they were real good. They were really good to their workers out there, and they really treated you well. Saw that you had water to drink and all the good stuff. But even at Christmas time, after we got back, they sent us a bonus because they had made so much money. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be tough.
That was that was really a shocker. So you can see we were used to driving old cars, but coming back, we climbed in that old 29 Model A and gassed her up and never let her stop. We just kept right on coming to Minnesota.
Wow. And what year was this you graduated then?
In 48.
48. So 20, yeah, so it was almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
But you'd gone through it and it was mechanically sound.
Yep.
So well, and they made things to last back then.
They really did. Yeah. And you could overhaul a thing probably. You didn't need many wrenches, screwdriver and a pliers, and and you had
baling twine.
That's your main tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I was thinking when we were talking about that neat old clock up there, I was going to say, here it is still running. I was going to say, that wasn't bought in a Walmart.
Oh.
You'd mentioned that they needed troops for the ships they were decommissioning. Now, I thought when you decommissioned a ship, that meant you were going to put it away or something like that. But decommissioning means they were changing staff or changing...
Changing personnel.
Changing personnel.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that changing them out from the Korean situation at all, or just?
That was for the Korean situation.
Yeah.
And that they were getting them ready to take more troops over. And some of these guys, after we got on these ships, that's where they had started out, helping taking the stuff off of them in order to get them running again. And they were all World War II stuff, but it didn't take them, I don't know what this guy said, 2 or 3 months to get them going. And I thought that was pretty good.
So they were kind of bringing them out of
mothballs.
Mothballs, so to speak. Okay. Okay.
It was down in Baltimore, Maryland, where they had them stored. On the James River down there, I think it is.
Yeah. All right.
This guy said there was ships as far as you could see.
Wow. Now my mind's in Florida with you again, and you'd emphasized all of the inventorying and stuff originally, and then you alluded to the idea of, gosh, you are honest until proven otherwise. Before you had mentioned that, I was going to ask, was it because of a concern for threat that they did this, or theft that they did this over inventorying, or was it just to keep people busy, or was it just...
Mostly theft. Because that's how I got into the small stores. This guy ahead of me, he had just loaded up his car and took it right down to the small stores in Jacksonville, Florida, and was selling it. And he was a second-class seaman and officer in the store. And of course, they tried to get guys that were honest because he was loading her up and making money, boy.
They were just taking it down to the normal civilian stores, places, and selling them to the selling it to the merchants there.
Yeah.
I would think he'd been in a heap of trouble when they got him.
Oh, he was. They put him in jail. I don't know what it's called. But they got a special jail for the military.
Yeah, stockade or something like that, or something. But wow. Yeah.
He was put away for a while.
I would think so. Wow. Now, this small stores thing, I was wondering if they're taking applications, because I kind of like the sound of that 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then you're done. That sounds pretty nice. You know, like you said, it probably wasn't very fun what you were doing during that time, right? Because you were always having to keep track and inventory stuff.
Yeah,
Or...
but it wasn't that bad, you know. You get used to that stuff, and main thing is to watch your money. That's the main thing. So,
what did you do in your recreation time when you like? Let's say you got off at 3 o'clock. What did you do then?
oh, it all depended upon, but down there in Jacksonville, the weather was always pretty nice, and it was, sometimes we'd drive out to the beach, and they had they called it belly surfing, and you could buy these rubber rafts and you could take off on the surf and go, and it was really enjoyable. You'd be surprised
Kind
how
of like
fast.
boarding is.
Yeah. You couldn't stand up on them because they were rubberized,
Exactly.
but boy, you lay on your belly and you'd really, really move along.
You can really move.
Yeah.
Well, you can actually body surf, but you better know how to land. You better know how to get out of that wave before it puts you on the ground.
When it starts to roll you, man,
Exactly.
I'll tell you, you get sand in your ears and eyes and mouth. And,
Oh yeah.
oh Lord.
All sorts of other places too. Yeah. Now you mentioned that you were supposed to be together with your brother. You mentioned that your parents had actually gotten papers signed that they were supposed to keep you
Supposed
together.
to keep us together, yeah.
Now, when your parents learned that they hadn't, did they make any issue of it?
No, they let me take care of it. You know, and I wrote this letter in and wanted to know why we had been separated and things. And in about a month after that, I got a notice that we were going to be back together again. So.
Wow. Because the first thing I, of course, thought of when they separated you to put you on different ships was the 5 Sullivan brothers that were killed in World War II, I think it was, all on one ship. And then they made some decree that, you know, they had to not have all siblings together on something or something. I had thought, but okay, it must not have been, didn't have to do with that then.
Well, it might have been something with it. I wouldn't doubt that, but that wasn't, didn't seem to be the main thing.
Well, of course, you weren't in a battle zone at the time or anything, so yeah, okay. What was your purpose being in the Mediterranean and taking the 1,500 troops over there?
It was a display of strength for the United States. Even then, those Arabs were making trouble over there in Palestine, and there was an uprising going on at that time. And they called us up one day and said, we want you off the shores of Palestine, and we want you to sit there. So these are big ships. Like I said, they're over 5 stories high. And they had us sitting right out there. At that time, they had a great big Ferris wheel and different things on the shore that these people, it was like a funland deal. And we were close enough that we could see the big Ferris wheel. It was one of the largest in the world. And it was really quite a sight to see all that stuff. But you couldn't, couldn't hear the music, but they said if the wind was just right or something, you could hear the music from the thing. But
so it's just the U.S. showing a presence.
That's right, and letting them know that they could come in there and take over if they wanted to. Well, I was quite impressed with the Jewish people, the things that they had done with the land they had. They had gotten water into their land, and they were growing some of the most beautiful crops you ever saw. And you'd look across the road and see these Arabs, and they'd have about 5, 6 sheep or 10 goats, and they were just sitting there munching on something. I don't know what it is, but you know, to me, they were pretty lazy people.
The industriousness of the Jewish people versus the other. Huh. Boy, you said there were like 13 ports of call while you were over there?
Yeah.
What an experience to just get to see some different ways of living and
the different ways these people dress. You'd be amazed until I didn't realize, you know, how poor these countries were till we got back here to the United States and saw how our people dressed compared to them. Why, they were wearing rags. Even in Italy, they weren't that clothes conscious, and they're supposed to have been quite the deal, because when we were there, they had just come out with bikini bathing suits. And this one We were on the Riviera, and this one joint was having a display of bikini bathing suits. And of course, one of the sailors got into it, how we could get in, and he got the tickets, and we all got in there to see the bikini bathing. I was just amazed, you know, me, a kid from the country here in the 50s? Why, God, my chin almost dropped right to the floor. Boy, those gals, they put on a real show too, I'll tell you.
It wasn't all about the swimming suits.
Oh, no. They really, yeah. They had a beautiful men's club, listed men's club there. And that day they had a special on champagne. It was $1 a bottle. So everybody at our table, there must have been 15 guys at this big round table, they all ordered a bottle of champagne. So John over here, he was just slurping it, and I says to him, you better take it easy. He was going to have a good time, boy. And all of a sudden I didn't see John. And he says, what happened to John? Well, I don't know. This guy, he's monkeying around. Kick, by God, there he was. He fell down off the chair, slid right down onto the floor. I had to carry John out of there.
And that was a good time.
That was a good time, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned while you were at sea there wasn't a lot to do. How did people pass the time on ship?
Well, I wrote letters and different stuff like that where, you know, the engineers, they really had the job. They had to keep the engine running, and they had to keep things oiled and greased, and that was their time to really work. But most of the ship was pretty well kept busy. They knew what to make you do.
They still had stuff for you to do.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it wasn't all shuffleboard and.
Oh no, no, that was none of that shuffleboard stuff. A lot of painting, you know, like they say, if it don't move, paint it.
Yeah. When you were out at sea, they had a place that you could keep that old 33 Ford then, or?
We sold it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what have I not thought to ask you about, Bill?
Oh, probably what I did when I got out of the Navy.
What did you do when you got out of the Navy?
Well, I came home here and my dad had the bright idea that we should take a trip together so we get back together again. And he there was 6 of us, piled us in an old Chevy. Well, it was a pretty decent Chevy. And we went out to the West Coast and back in that. And I was kind of disappointed. I was ready to go to the dances here in Perm and have a good time.
Enjoy yourself,
yeah.
Being a free man.
Yeah, and I was a little disappointed with that. But after that, I went hunting for a car, and I just couldn't seem to get a decent car around Perm here. So I went into Bauks, and I started talking with them, and lo and behold, the old boy, he come down $200, and I got a brand new Chevy.
Whoa.
So I was really right down.
Now, what year would that have been then?
Been a 55.
55.
They just come out with that new design.
New body style.
Yeah, and man, that was really
that was cooking.
Yeah, big 6-cylinder.
Yep.
Boy, that baby hummed too. Yeah, well, I didn't get into any action in Korea, but I really didn't want to either.
Well,
so.
who would? No, who would?